On paper, the Prime Directive is simple. Don't interfere with the natural development of other civilizations. But in practice, Starfleet captains break it all the time. Sometimes it's to save civilizations, sometimes it's for the survival of their crew, and often it's just because captains think they know better. So in this video, I want to talk through 5 episodes and films with egregious Prime Directive violations, looking at what went wrong, which part of the directive was broken, and why these choices undercut the heart of Starfleet's ideals. If you're new to the channel or to the Prime Directive, I highly recommend going back and watching my breakdown of the Prime Directive first, as much of the analysis in this video is rooted in the concepts I presented there. And if you're not familiar with the language of the Prime Directive in its entirety, please check out the show notes. And while I've got you here, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and it really makes me feel good. So without further ado, here are 5 times Starfleet and its captain said, "What Prime Directive?" in no particular order. Number 1, Star Trek Into Darkness, Kirk and the Nibirans. Star Trek Into Darkness. So here's the problem. The Nibirans, a pre-warp society, face extinction from a volcanic eruption. The crew tries to avoid detection while attempting to stop the disaster. The Nibirans, a pre-warp culture, are about to be wiped out by a volcano, and the Enterprise is there to stop it. So we're 4 whole seconds into this movie, and the Prime Directive is already being violated. Kirk and McCoy are running through the woods, luring the Nibirans away from the volcano, so Spock can enter the volcano and stabilize it. Things go wrong, Spock's in danger, and Kirk refuses to let Spock die. Kirk's plan? Get the Enterprise close enough to beam Spock out. Spock's immediately like, but the Nibirans will see Enterprise, and that's a Prime Directive violation. And Kirk's like, is there an exception? And Spock's like, nope. And by the way, the needs of the many, the Nibirans, outweigh the needs of the one, me. And of course, lens flares Kirk ignores Spock. The Enterprise rises dramatically from beneath the ocean, rescues Spock, and absolutely reveals itself to the civilization. The Nibirans record the sighting by drawing the ship into the dirt, then bow to it, making it clear this event has reshaped their worldview in some marked way. And it doesn't end there. Spock's not happy, but Kirk's like, Spock, you saved this world. And Spock's like, again, you broke the Prime Directive by being seen. Kirk's response, oh, come on, Spock, they saw us, big deal. And that's not me being cheeky, that's actually what he says. Kirk treats the infraction like a big whoopsie doodle, you know, like how he handles all his shenanigans in the lens flares timeline. God, I hate this movie. I hate this movie so much. All right, what are the stakes for the Prime Directive? It's pretty clear. Intervene and break the Prime Directive, or stand back and let a sentient species die. But what exactly is being violated here? Every single clause of Section 1 of the Prime Directive. 1A, no identification of self or mission. The Nibirans clearly see Kirk and McCoy, and those hoods they're wearing are doing nothing to hide their faces. They didn't even bother to put any makeup on them. Like, did they really not have the time while they were flying there to put some makeup on them? Come on. How about Section 1B? No interference with social, cultural, or technological development. So by stopping the volcano, they've clearly intervened in the development of the Nibirans because, well, you know, they're still alive. And then you get Section 1C. No references to space or other worlds or advanced civilizations. Y'all, the Nibirans see the ship. They saw the ship. So here's the impact and the consequences. Just by deciding to interfere in the natural progression of Nibiran society, the Prime Directive has already been broken before the movie even begins, which, on a personal level in this case, I'm actually fine with. If all it takes is dropping a huge ice cube into a volcano to save a civilization, and one has the power to do that, go for it. You should do that. But the crew could have saved the Nibirans another way. Hell, why not do the mission the night before while everyone's sleeping? That might have worked. Instead, their interference plants a seed of worship, fear, or cultural upheaval of some kind. What was once a culture with its own temple and sacred texts may now evolve around this starship in the sky that the civilization will probably never see again. Furthermore, Kirk openly disregards multiple warnings and treats the Prime Directive like a joke. The result isn't just saving Spock's life. His actions alter the future of an entire species. Admiral Pike later spells it out. Kirk didn't survey a planet, he altered its destiny. and Kirk blows him off because Abrams Kirk is an egotistical asshole instead of a stack of books with legs. Pike slams Kirk for his attitude, remarking, "And what's worse is you're using blind luck to justify your playing God." Your playing God is the exact verbiage Captain Archer used to express his concern over a lack of Prime Directive in Enterprise. At the very least, Pike demotes Kirk and sends him back to the Academy, where Kirk absolutely belongs because he has no right to be captain at this point. Talk about unearned promotions. Like, this one is way worse than promoting Nepo baby Captain John Harriman, y'all. I told you I hated this movie. This is an excellent example of what happens when captains wield unilateral power over interpreting and applying the Prime Directive, and what happens when you have an underqualified, overly rash captain at the helm. Because the Abramsverse sacrifices technobabble for action scenes, because God forbid we mix technobabble with that Apple Store aesthetic. And furthermore, anyone who likes this movie is a mother... Number 2, Star Trek Discovery Season 5 and the Federation's interference in Breen politics. So here's the problem. The Discovery crew is racing against the Breen to unlock progenitor technology. The Breen Imperium, already a militarized society, is in the middle of a violent succession crisis. Starfleet and the Federation do not believe the Breen can be trusted with the tech, and that the Federation must find it first at all costs. In Discovery's Season 5 Red Directive arc, the crew goes on a scavenger hunt for technology left behind by the progenitors, an ancient species capable of incredible power. The hunt becomes more complicated when the Breen become aware of the technology. You see, the Breen are in a period of political upheaval, with rival factions chasing Locke, a crown prince who would add legitimacy to each of their claims. After Locke's death, his widow Maul seizes control of a faction, hoping that the progenitor's technology will bring back her husband. Meanwhile, back at Federation headquarters, the powers that be have to wrestle with what would happen if the Breen got the technology before the Federation. Captain now Ambassador Saru volunteers to go to one of the Breen factions led by Tahal, who is trying to catch up with Maul's faction. Saru promises that if Tahal turns back, the Federation will set up a trade route with her faction, indicating that the Federation is passively supporting her in the line of succession. She claims to be uninterested, but then ends up turning back. So what are the stakes here? If the Breen get progenitor tech, they could dominate an entire quadrant, if not quadrants. But if the Federation interferes too heavily in the Breen Civil War, they risk inflaming an already unstable political situation and being pulled into a conflict with a superior military power. But how does this break the Prime Directive, you might ask? Section 2A states, if engaged with diplomatic relations, stay within the culture's restrictions. If anything, the Federation and Saru are weaponizing diplomacy to break the Prime Directive when Saru pressures Tahal into turning back. Furthermore, Section 2B requires no interference with the social development of planets, or in this case, warp-capable empires. The Federation here is putting pressure on the line of succession, changing its potential outcomes, and we have zero idea what the consequences might be. So why choose this example? Just to start, I'll admit, the Red Directive arc almost requires the Prime Directive to be broken all over the place. Though this is our first encounter with a Red Directive, the implication is that it supersedes any other directive, including the Prime and Omega directives. But the Breen succession example goes deeper than just a Prime Directive violation. This is a classic Federation knows best and no one can have this technology but us storyline. And you can't convince me that this response was just because it was the Breen, or that the Federation would have responded differently to any other power wanting this technology. So I'm with Commander Rayner on this one. The Breen easily could destroy the quadrant with this technology. But I don't trust the Federation with this tech either. Burnham's final choice to launch the progenitor's technology into a black hole is exactly what needed to happen. If sentient life eventually advances that far, it can once again create similar technology in its own way. By stepping in, Starfleet once again decided it knows best, even if it meant interfering with the future of an empire. This storyline underlines a recurring flaw in Starfleet and the Federation. Enforcement of the Prime Directive collapses the moment galactic stakes or direct stakes for the Federation are involved. Conveniently, we don't find out what happens with the Breen succession, but in the end, it doesn't erase the Federation's interference. I'll be interested to see if Star Trek Starfleet Academy will show any fallout from the events of Season 5 of Discovery. Number 3, Mirror Mirror and the Collapse of the Terran Empire. Speaking of altering the trajectory of empires, here's another example. Let's turn to the episode that started the evil goatee trend, Mirror Mirror. So what's the problem here? An accident sends Kirk, McCoy, Uhura, and Scotty into the Mirror universe, where a brutal, warp-capable empire controls everything. The challenge? Survive long enough to get home. In the episode, Kirk, Uhura, Scotty, and Bones are transported to a brutal parallel universe ruled by the tyrannical Earth-based Terran Empire. The Empire is characterized by treachery, exploitation, violence, and evil goatees. The crew navigates this dangerous world, pretending to adopt its cruel norms while seeking to find a way home. Near the end of the episode, Kirk engages Mirror Spock in conversation, planting the idea that change is possible and urging him to take action to end the tyranny of the Terran Empire. Spock doesn't seem to be fully convinced, but does seem to consider Kirk's statements. So here are the stakes. The stakes have nothing to do with the Prime Directive, implicitly. Basically, if Kirk and the crew can't figure out how to get home, they will be stuck in the universe forever. So let's talk about the violation. If it's not a classic Prime Directive episode, how do Kirk's actions break the Prime Directive? Let's return to Section 2B, no interference with the social development of a planet. Kirk doesn't accidentally say something that puts an idea into Mirror Spock's head. He intentionally pushes Mirror Spock toward reform, which fundamentally alters Terran history. But so what? I know some of you are going to be like, but the Prime Directive doesn't apply here because it's a different universe. Or, well, the Terrans suck, so their culture should change. And that's all fine and dandy. I get it. I just disagree with you. Because why should the Federation abandon its General Order 1, its Prime Directive, just because they're outside the Federation? Section 2 of the directive still applies to warp-capable cultures, both in and outside the Federation. So if the Prime Directive is supposed to be so important, wouldn't it be even more important to keep it here in the Mirror universe? So yeah, this does qualify as an egregious violation of the Prime Directive. But I get why Kirk did it. He thinks he's planting a seed that will change the lives of billions and make them better. But what he does is alter the entire history of a universe. And we actually have confirmation of this. We later see in Deep Space Nine that Kirk's meddling helped lead to the fall of the Terran Empire, which sounds like a good thing, until you find out that it led to the rise of the Klingon-Cardassian alliance, which in turn enslaved Terrans and Vulcans. This breaking of the Prime Directive changed the lives of billions upon billions of Terrans, Klingons, Vulcans, Cardassians, Bajorans, you name it. But what gave Kirk the god-level right, especially when he's required to keep the Prime Directive? In terms of General Order 1, the takeaway is clear. You can't pick and choose when the Prime Directive applies. Even noble intentions can unleash worse outcomes, or at least equally bad ones, than doing nothing at all. Number 4, Deep Space Nine in the Pale Moonlight, manipulating the Romulans. A million analysis videos have covered Deep Space Nine's In the Pale Moonlight, and here's another one. And yeah, I can already hear the, but the greater good arguments, so stick with me here, okay? Here's the problem. The problem in this episode is that the Dominion War is going badly for the Federation and its allies. Billions are dying, and Captain Sisko is desperate to bring the Romulans into the fight on the Federation's side. During Season 6 of Deep Space Nine, the Dominion War is raging, and the Federation is losing ground. Sisko, desperate to turn the tide, decides to bring the Romulans into the war. But it's not going to be easy because the Romulans have a non-aggression pact with the Dominion. Sisko enlists Garak to find some evidence that proves that the Dominion is planning to invade Romulus, which Garak can't, because it doesn't exist. So they come up with a new plan. Create a false holo recording showing Cardassia and the Dominion planning the invasion of Romulus, which they then show to Romulan Senator Vreenak. When Vreenak discovers the forgery, he's enraged and threatens to tattle on Sisko. As a backup plan, Garak kills the senator and manipulates the evidence to appear legitimate, and this deception successfully draws the Romulans into the war. So let's turn to the stakes. Without the Romulans, the Federation and Klingons will probably lose the war and face either extinction or, at the very least, subjugation. But manipulating another sovereign empire into war risks betraying the very principle Starfleet was founded on. All right, so the violations here. We are back to sections 2A and 2B because Sisko abuses diplomatic relations to get this fake information to Vreenak, and he clearly interferes with the social development of the Romulans, as many Romulans will now die because of being tricked into this war. So yeah, there's a lot of consequences with this one. Sisko wins. He gets the Romulans into the war, but he does so at a huge moral cost. He deceives the Romulans into joining the war, justifying it to himself as necessary for the greater good. But if the Prime Directive means anything, it's that Starfleet can't play God with other civilizations' choices. And that right there is something that has been conspicuously absent from my analysis so far. Starfleet. Because unlike most other Prime Directive violations, Starfleet is actively involved in this one. Sisko and Garrick may have come up with the plan to fool the Romulans, but this is not an example of a captain going into God-level decision-making mode. Sisko ran this up the chain of command and had approval from Starfleet to introduce this fake evidence to Breen. Look, Starfleet doesn't get to decide that their people are worth sacrificing over other people. This is why it's so important for Starfleet not to interfere in the internal decisions of another sovereign people, regardless of their work capabilities. If the Romulans don't want to join, they don't have to. If that leads to their eventual annihilation by the Dominion, that's their choice. Should the Romulans have gotten involved sooner? Maybe. Probably. But the Romulans are known in their foreign policy for their cautiousness and not involving themselves until it's to their own advantage. And Starfleet had no right to disrespect that. This episode is one of the best in DS9 for so many reasons, but for me, it's because it shows how easily noble ideals crumble under pressure and how comfortable Starfleet often gets with breaking its own rules when survival is on the line. So can Sisko really learn to live with it? Maybe. Should he? No. Number 5, Voyager's Scorpion and Janeway's deal with the Borg. Yeah, come on. Would it be a Prime Directive egregious violations video without us talking about Captain Janeway? Yep, here's the one where Janeway and the Borg team up against species 8472. So here's the problem. Voyager enters Borg space only to discover a new, terrifying enemy, species 8472. These beings can destroy Borg cubes like they're nothing. But with any other route, there will be years added to Voyager's journey home. The episode begins with the best cold open in Voyager, something blowing the shit out of 2 Borg cubes. Voyager enters this new sector of space and discovers species 8472, an immensely powerful species that, yes, can destroy Borg vessels like they are tissue paper. Facing having to turn back, Janeway proposes a dangerous deal. Help the Borg create a weapon against species 8472 in exchange for safe passage. Despite Chakotay's warnings and the crew's hesitancy, Janeway goes through with the plan. Voyager shares technology, helps the Borg adapt their weapons, and ultimately drives species 8472 back into fluidic space. But this alliance also gives the Borg new tools and puts Starfleet on species 8472's radar for years to come. So the stakes are high on this one. If Voyager can't make it through this portion of space, their trip home may take years longer. Species 8472 is a real and present threat for both Voyager and the Borg. But by helping the Borg, Janeway risks empowering one of the galaxy's most dangerous forces and escalating a war that doesn't even involve Starfleet until Voyager interferes. So the violation here is pretty obvious. It's another Section 2B violation. No interference with the social development of said planet. Janeway shifts the balance of power between 2 civilizations that the Federation has zero involvement with diplomatically. Hell, they're not even at war with either of these powers. And the Borg started this war, for Christ's sake. So Janeway sided with the aggressors. But, so what, right? Janeway claims she's doing it to get her crew home, but in the process, she changes the course of 2 species' histories and sparks species 8472's long-term mistrust of Starfleet. And some of y'all are going to be like, yeah, but they'll die or never make it home otherwise. A legitimate concern. I'm definitely not saying otherwise. But according to how the Prime Directive has been interpreted throughout Star Trek, Starfleet is to keep it even if it means the crew's death. Captain Kirk says in the original series episode, The Omega Glory, that a star captain's most solemn oath is that he will give his life, even his crew's, rather than violate the Prime Directive. And some of y'all might be like, oh, but all the Doctor did was tweak Borg technology and give it back to them. Yeah, but the Borg, with all their knowledge, haven't figured out how to adapt their own nanoprobes on their own volition. So yeah, this is new tech. And it's the callousness behind it. Janeway hides the weapon within the Doctor's holomatrix and is literally willing to kill the Doctor to keep those plans from the Borg. And other than the Doctor, who like bumps for half a second, no one seems to have a problem with this. But what if it had been Kes or Tuvok that had to be sacrificed? Would Janeway have been so willing to delete them? This is exactly why the Prime Directive exists, because no one person should have the authority to alter interstellar politics on a whim or to kill a member of their own crew. Janeway wanted to get her crew home more than she wanted to be Starfleet in this situation. And this is a far cry from first season Janeway, who vowed to remain Starfleet no matter what the challenges. Chakotay advised her to find another way through Borg space, or around Borg space, or even to just call it a day and find a nice M-class planet and let their people live a real life. But none of that is good enough. It's never good enough for Janeway. Just look at the Voyager finale. Admiral Janeway is willing to change life across the entire galaxy just because she doesn't like how history went. But that's a temporal Prime Directive violation and a story for another time. So now that we're closing out this month's Prime Directive short course, I'm betting some of you are wondering where I come down on all of this. That's fair. I haven't really come out and said it. I love the spirit of the Prime Directive. I love that it comes from Roddenberry and Kuhn seeing what was happening to civilians in Vietnam and wanting to make a statement. It also comes after so many species, be they sentient or otherwise, have been decimated in the name of settler colonialism, manifest destiny, and empire. It reminds us of the vastness of the universe and that no one person can play God or know what's right for an entire people. So sometimes the Prime Directive should lead to really hard decisions. Pen Pals from TNG is a great example. In the episode, Data discovers a planet with a sentient species is breaking down due to earthquakes and requests that the Enterprise do something to stop it. Picard is kind but firm and reminds Data that he can't because that would be a Prime Directive violation. The wrinkle is that Data has already broken the Prime Directive by communicating with Sarjenka, a young girl from that society who is not aware of life outside her planet. And of course, because it's TNG, they definitely go and save the planet that the young girl is on. But what if they hadn't? Why do we rarely, if ever, get examples of how hard it is to keep the directive? Is it because it would make us uncomfortable? Good. Good science fiction should make us uncomfortable sometimes. If the Prime Directive is their first general order, and it's so important, why do we see it broken constantly? What's the point of having this really interesting concept within the universe that just isn't respected? Is it because the Prime Directive is impossible to keep, so we shouldn't have one? Or is it because keeping it doesn't make good TV? I'm still not completely sure. But for me, it comes down to there being rarely any consequences for breaking it. The Kirk Into Darkness example stands, but can y'all think of any other times that there's such a clear penalty for breaking the Prime Directive? Laws only work if they're enforceable, and Starfleet has proven time and time again that there are no consequences for breaking General Order 1. So that's it. Some of the 5 worst examples of how the Prime Directive gets bent, broken, or completely ignored across Star Trek. But now I want to hear from you. Which of these Prime Directive violations do you think were the most unforgivable, and which ones were actually justified? What are some of your favorite egregious Prime Directive fails? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's keep this conversation going so that I can then respond to some of your comments in my office hours videos. If you're still here with me, thank you so much. I'm having a ball making this content and talking with y'all about it. Please keep engaging with the channel and let me know what else you'd like me to cover. If you've enjoyed what you've learned here today, or if you just want to be a nice person, please like and subscribe. For updates, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. If you'd like to support independent scholarship, join us on Patreon. For each level of support, there are bonus materials and content, including input on future month short course topics, extended interviews and bonus videos, private AMA hours, a Star Trek book club, and even one-time lecture requests. Links are in the show notes below. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey down a long road. I hope you've enjoyed getting from there to here with me. Until then, be well, and if you're gonna interfere with a pre-war planet, do better than Kirk. Put some makeup on at least. Put on a costume. Do something. Come on. We can do better than that.